there's a few things that happen when you actually are using the technology right, when you are giving feedback to your candidates at the right time, when you're closing them out. So we've designed processes that we believe offer the best candidate experience. We've designed processes that we believe help the recruiters do their job the best. We've designed processes that we hope hiring managers are getting the talent that they need in the seat at the time that they need it. And so to me, understanding why and when and how and following that is actually going to provide excellence.
Welcome to Offer Accepted, the podcast that elevates your recruiting game. I'm your host, Shannon Ogborn. Join us for conversations with talent leaders, executives, and more to uncover the secrets to building and leading successful talent acquisition teams. Gain valuable insights and actionable advice from analyzing cutting-edge metrics to confidently claiming your seat at the table. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to another episode of Offer Accepted. I'm Shannon Ogborn, your host, and this episode is brought to you by Ashby, the all-in-one recruiting platform empowering teams from seed to IPO and beyond. I'm super excited to be here today with Blair Bennett. She is the Senior Vice President of Global Talent Acquisition at PepsiCo. She drives success across frontline workers, campus, professional, and executive hiring. But recruiting is actually not the only thing that she's navigated. She started her career in political consulting before making the leap into talent at Korn Ferry. And from there, she joined Walmart's in-house executive TA team before landing at PepsiCo in 2019. Her mission, which I love, is to make PepsiCo the employer of choice and build a great candidate experience that truly reflects the company's goals. So Blair, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Shannon. It's great to be here with you in Vegas.
Yes, I know. I've talked to a couple of people who are just like, it's just the energy is really exciting to be around your people.
Yes, it is. It is fun I am a lifelong learner and avid learner. So to come to these things and talk to people and see what's going on, it does give me a lot of energy. So
amazing. Well, we today are going to be talking about a really important topic, which is co-designing talent programs with other stakeholders. And I'm really excited to hear from you about this because not only are you doing this, but you're doing this at a pretty large scale. But before we get into the how, I'd like to take a little bit of a step back and talk about why co-designing talent programs is so essential for talent teams.
I think it's a really important topic, actually, and something that I feel very, I have a high level of responsibility to create programs that people are going to use and find value from. And so sometimes when you hear something like, oh, the global COE just creates stuff and sends it down and they don't really know, I never want somebody to feel like we're giving them a program or we're giving them a process that doesn't provide value. And so part of, I think, the secret to doing that is co-designing, because you are bringing people into the process very early on to understand their needs, to understand what they are feeling is going to be valuable, feeling is going to be something that they can use. And so when you get them in early, then they're more likely to use it on the end, and then you have more success.
Yes, I love that. Getting people in early so they feel like they're part of the journey, not just being handed to them. I know that happens to talent a lot. And so I think it only makes sense that in reverse, we're making sure that doesn't happen to others, because I think we know how it feels when we're handed a plan that maybe we weren't a part of.
Right. And actually, I think one of the things that is always amazing about using, we use a lot of design thinking principles and that user centricity mindset. And that really helps to drive a culture within our team of asking the right questions, of listening, of not making assumptions. And then you actually are bringing in different voices. And so we try to talk to people at all levels of the organization and different functions of the organization who bring kind of that diversity of ideas. And I think that broad base of user, so that you can truly have that user centricity and, again, sort of build something that when you put it in their hands, they feel good about it and they feel like they have been part of that. Now, we're a very large company, so you can't get everybody involved. So you pick your stakeholders carefully and you pick them so that they are representative of your population.
Yes, I love that. You definitely can't do anything in a vacuum because talent spans across so many teams and functions, and the more successful the relationship is between recruiting and talent and other functions, the more successful the entire business is. So this is actually very, very important. I would love to hear more about how PepsiCo implements this co-design in talent strategy. And I would like to start with kind of like the biggest mistake that companies make in designing talent strategy, which I think you had kind of talked about, actually goes backing into it instead of not starting with the thing. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. So one thing, and actually being here at a conference and seeing a lot of vendors and those types of things, everybody's like pitching their products to you and like, I got this cool thing. But what I always say is like, I don't need to chase the cool thing. I need to understand the business problem we're trying to solve. And so when you really think about what is the business challenge, what's the pain point, what's the barrier you're trying to remove, then you actually can start to design what you think that process is going to be or what you think that program is going to be. And from there, then you start to understand what are the tools or technologies I need to implement this in an effective way. And also, how does human and technology intersectionality work to be able to then create something and implement that in a really effective way. So sometimes, people are tempted to like go after the shiny object. And I would caution people of that and like really start with like, what's the business problem you're trying to solve?
Agreed. It's easy to get distracted,
Yes,
for
that's a
sure.
great word. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me more about the how past that.
Yes, PepsiCo is a large company. We have 320,000 associates and we're all over the globe. But I think this is something, the how is something that you can do whether you're in a small company or a large company. So I think one is like, what are you starting with? Like, what is the business problem you're trying to solve? Who are stakeholders who might be, again, kind of that end user of what you're going to be creating? How do you think about the internal stakeholder piece? And I would also say the external piece. Because when we are working on designing something, we really want to look at data points from our internal data set, but we also want to benchmark what's happening externally. So that's a really important part not to forget. So then as you start to bring the internal data and external data and the voice of your stakeholders together, I think another important thing is like, how do you inspire the individuals that you're bringing into maybe your design thinking session? So always kind of putting these data points or nuggets out there. And then if you think about using things like your surveys, like a candidate experience survey or a hiring manager experience survey, do some focus groups. Like there's a way to bring these voices into it. And then I think the next stage is like starting to prototype. And so we have an example of creating a global interview framework, and I can go into more detail as we talk. But one of the things that we did is after we did the design thinking sessions, focus groups, data collection, we started prototyping. And then we validated these prototypes with the individuals who contributed. And we also then brought our people leadership team, my peers, and we did a design session with them, kind of validating that prototype. So from very top of the house all the way through the organization with different levels, we were able to like get really rich input, design a prototype, validate that prototype, and then test. Yeah. So we have pilot groups that we're testing this framework with. So those are kind of the stages that we take when we're doing something that I think we try to do on a regular basis. This is not a one-time thing, but this is how we work.
Right. And everyone knows you're working that way. They know what to expect, which is great. I feel like I have so many follow-up questions. One is, how do you choose who to pilot to?
Well, I think it depends on the situation. So in this example of global interview framework, what we were trying to do is create a standard framework that can be used to help us, simplify the interview process, ensure great candidate experience, look at our recruiting team, I would say, in the value that they're bringing into that process so that the hiring manager feels really good about the work of the recruiting team. And so we wanted to pilot with different groups of recruiters and hiring managers. So we actually took a look at different geographies. So we had teams, one team in each of our sectors. So in Asia, in LATAM, in AMESA, the Middle East, in Europe, in the US. So that way we could really understand, like, is this going to work across geographies? The other thing that we wanted to do was look at different levels of recruiting that they may do. So if we took a team who maybe does like more entry level recruiting, and then we took a team who might do a little bit more in that like senior manager group, so that you start to see where might this framework hold up against different levels of recruiting. And the other thing that we really looked at from a pilot group is like making sure that the commitment from that group was going to be there, because not only did we want to co-design at the forefront, but we also know that as you start to pilot, you're going to learn things, you're going to iterate on things, we need their input on things. So it wasn't just like, hey, go pilot this. It was help us continue to build the right solution. So that commitment piece was really, really important.
Right. I mean, if you're not getting the feedback, how can you make any valuable changes? That makes total sense. One of my other questions is, do you all use anything like a DACY or RACY model to figure out like who's the driver of a project, who are the contributors?
Yes, we do actually look at something, a RACY or an interaction model, those types of things, so that you can understand. But how we are just making some refinements to our global COE in the capability and the structure of that group. And we actually are setting that up with capabilities that span strategy, design, and also integrated roadmap, so that we can look at projects across the board and that we see like, what are we working on? How are we measuring the success of that? So value realization. And then also, we don't want to put too much into the system.
Right.
So we want to have prioritization, and we want to know that we're working on the right things and measuring them in the right ways. So in that sense, we've actually set up capabilities where handoffs happen and like that, what we call interaction model. And then when you think about let's just take a pilot group, for example, like what is their role? What is their responsibility? Again, making sure that that's defined so they know what you're wanting from them, what the expectation is, and then how do they define success of being a pilot group. And that will also then translate into better change management when you actually like roll this out to the broader community, because you've been working with these pilot groups, they're giving you feedback, they're telling you what's working, they're telling you what's not working. So hopefully by the time you're doing your launch, you're like addressing these things and you already know what was coming up. So it's really helpful with the change management too.
Yes. And I feel like change management is a great place to earn credibility. And I know that you've talked before about the importance of earning that credibility to make the changes.
Yes. So in this example of our global interview framework, one of the things that we want to do is we want hiring managers to not feel like they have to do so many interviews or include so many people in the interview process, because it just takes time. And, like from a candidate experience standpoint, a candidate getting asked the same question over and over and over is not the best experience. So we're looking at this framework and we're saying, look, there's some critical parts to what we want to focus on. One is going to be your upfront kind of intake, or what we call recruitment strategy meeting. And this is like really important to drive the rest of it, because you want to make sure that in that meeting, you're understanding what's the role, what's the business, what are the requirements, et cetera. And so critical focus there. And then you move into, we actually decided, speaking of technology and we decided that we wanted to bring in some technology at the forefront. So interview intelligence technology. So that's part of what we're testing as well. And then I think as you move into like the hiring manager, how many interviews they should do, et cetera, what I didn't want us to do was start with the hiring manager. Because if you just go to a hiring manager and say like, look, talent acquisition said that you shouldn't do so many interviews, they would look at you like, okay, I'm not listening to you.
Yeah.
I'm going to have the people interviewing that I want to have interviewing. So where we started was like, let's get really good on the recruitment strategy meeting. Let's get really good on the information we're giving to the hiring manager. And then we can ask the hiring manager to change. So take care of what we can control first, because what's going to happen is then that relationship with the hiring manager gets stronger. The trust is better. And all of a sudden, you've earned the right to ask the hiring manager to do something different. And so that's kind of the next stage of what we're going to be working on after we get the first pieces like right.
Totally. I feel like recruiting teams being able to showcase they have a little skin in the game and you're all working towards the same goal and you're putting in the time and the effort to change manage on your side, it feels, I think, more fair. And a lot of people care about fairness. And even though we are grown adults, there's sometimes we're like, well, it's not fair. Why are you changing this for me, but you're not changing anything on your end? That factor helps hiring managers feel like, okay, you're invested in this too. And you're not saying you need to change. It's like we all together are moving towards these changes. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we need from you.
Yes. And we found that exact thing, Shannon, in these pilot groups where the hiring managers are giving really positive feedback on how the recruiters are now engaging in those recruitment strategy meetings. It has become a little bit of like that co-ownership of the process. And so even like you can even take this theory of like co-designing into your entire recruitment process, because you sit down with that hiring manager, you have a really strong recruitment strategy meeting, you start to co-design the recruitment strategy with your hiring manager. And the hiring manager loves that because they care, right, about who comes into their team. And they also see you as the recruiter, like providing this incredible value of insights and conversation and questions. And they feel like you care too. So it really does create this sense of we when you do this.
Yeah. Speaking of we, there's also a we that you talked about in your peers. So peers in your organization and bringing this to them. Can you talk to me a little bit more about that step and how you can, it's not necessarily we want you to make this choice or we want to bring you to this choice, but what information do you give them to have them understand the full picture of what you're trying to accomplish?
So I sit on our people leadership team. So my peer group are our chief people officers for each of our regions, as well as our HR operations. We call it people experience and operations, our total rewards, talent management, et cetera. So that's kind of the peer group. And what we did with this global interview framework, which was super fun, and the team, I think, got a lot out of it, was I mentioned we also did a design thinking session with my peers. And so we actually started to take them through like this whole process of help us understand where you believe the most important parts of the interview process are, et cetera, et cetera. And it gave them a lot of ahas into the complexity of what we are dealing with. And also, it really started to help them understand why change was necessary. And we know that like our CHROs are really important into getting buy-in later on from the business, from the hiring managers, et cetera. So when they experienced this and they had their own ahas, it was just like helping us advance our mission that much more forward. And then as we created the framework, I didn't have to go explain to them what we had done because they were part of the design. So it was super cool. And I think it's something that we'll continue to use as a tool in our toolbox is get them engaged. Don't just tell them what you're doing, like have them, bring them along on that journey.
Totally. I just see you light up about this and I'm excited because you're excited about it. I think the other thing with the peers that you had mentioned was there's a lot of documentation. There was a lot of thoughtful, here's what we've done, here's what we have uncovered, which basically makes it easy for them to say yes because they know that you have left no stone unturned. You have thought about everything from every angle, like you said.
Right. When they know that you had the voice of the business at the table, that you had some HR, some of their HR team members at the table, you had your TA people at the table, like you had them at the table. Yeah, they trust.
Yeah.
Right. They trust that you've thought about all the things that you have left, as you said, no stone unturned. And what's better than that? Right.
Yeah. Because I think the change management becomes difficult when someone feels like you haven't done your due diligence and that you're kind of making a choice willy-nilly to implement something without thought. And I do think with tools that can kind of come into play. And so in process, and it's just really good for them to have been informed, because nothing is really a surprise. And if nothing's a surprise, it's kind of hard to object.
Right. And also it makes it easier, with the buy-in, but also the storytelling. And as we pilot, we're also learning, right? So then we can go back to them and say, okay, we designed this, we tested this we got right, this we need to iterate on. And they already like conceptually understand how you got to this place. And now, like, making a tweak or a change, like, it's not as hard to tell that story and to continue to bring them along in it.
And then I feel like just making changes in the future too are a lot easier.
Absolutely.
I know that we've talked a little bit about like results and outcomes, and especially around the interview process, the global interview process project, but anything that gets you really excited about the results and the outcomes and success?
Yeah, you know what actually makes me continue to be excited is just that we continue to bring this way of thinking into our way of working. And I think that in our people organization, our talent acquisition team is getting a lot of kudos for this way of working. And I think other people are seeing the value of it. Last year, actually, another example is we were going through a planning of making some adjustments to our operating model and to our structure. And we use this same sense of like co-designing. So we were transparent with the organization that we were evaluating ourselves, that we were taking a step back, and we actually engaged about 60 different SMEs from around the globe, across HR, across TA, across some of our talent partners. And we got them involved in how we were thinking about operating model, structure, et cetera. And so just another example, and we're just now moving into these changes, and the organizations behind us, like they're cheering us on because they want this to be successful because they were part of it. So I think like the value that comes through this is, yes, it's the outcome and it's the output, but the process is really actually probably the biggest win, because people love to be part of it. They like to have a voice. They like the communication they're getting. They like the information they're getting. And so you just have like a very strong spirit of like building together. And it culturally is a wonderful thing that, you just get. I think success is like people looking at it and saying, wow, I want to work like that too.
I just like got chills in my body. The sharing in success is one of the things that makes work great. And the culture elements around that, it doesn't just make people more productive or change work. It makes people feel good about where they're working. People are more likely to stay. People are more likely to be excited about their work, which all lead to good things as an employee.
Yeah. Well, the other thing we started talking about learning, this is an amazing way for people in your organization to also learn. So if you think about like you're a recruiter and you get to go into this like design session, or you get to be a SME, or you get to be part of a pilot group, and like you're getting exposure to me, the leader of the function, you're learning from other people who you don't get to normally work with. Like it is a huge learning opportunity. And I think that that also is something that is really enriching for the entire team, because that people, like you said, I mean, they just want to be part of a team where they're learning and they're engaged, and people want, they're asking for their opinion. So
I feel like especially at the individual contributor level, because I was an IC recruiter for many years, and it just feels good for someone to want your opinion, because I think there's a lot of, well, who wants little me, recruiter's opinion? It's like, actually, we do want your opinion, because at the end of the day, you're the one who's working in this system.
absolutely.
Like we're working through the strategy, but you're the one who is taking candidates through the process. You're the one getting people to an offer. And ultimately, you are the face of this brand, because you are the first person people interact with.
Yes.
So if your recruiters aren't excited about what they're doing and why they're doing it and who they're doing it for is really actually a detriment to your business.
Yeah, that's right. And also, I think if you, using this example of you as an individual contributor, and you get to be part of a project like this, and you are getting to share your opinion, it also creates a environment where people feel comfortable sharing their opinion. And to me as a leader, that is super important, because if people aren't willing to share, or if people don't feel like they can share, then we can't figure out what we need to solve for you, right? And I want my recruiters to feel like we make their job as easy as possible. It's hard enough, right? We don't need to make it even harder. We always want to be trying to make it easier. So I think culturally, I also want an environment where people feel like they can share and they can be part of it and that they have a strong voice.
Well, taking sort of a large step back, because we were really in the weeds there, at Ashby, we talk a lot about hiring excellence, and there's, of course, across our guests, similarities, but I always love to hear what it means to other people, because I think depending on the organization and the person, it might mean something a little different.
Yeah. So hiring excellence to me, I mean, yes, you know, you have your metrics and how quickly you're getting things done, et cetera, et cetera. But I think hiring excellence to me is actually when you start to understand, and I tell my team this a lot because we talk a lot about like process standardization and process adherence and these types of things. But I think that those are important for driving hiring excellence, because there's a few things that happen when you actually are using the technology right, when you are giving feedback to your candidates at the right time, when you're closing them out. Like, so we've designed processes that we believe offer the best candidate experience. We've designed processes that we believe help the recruiters do their job the best. We've designed processes that we hope hiring managers are getting the talent that they need in the seat at the time that they need it. And so to me, like understanding why and when and how and like following that is actually going to provide excellence. And that's kind of the science. And then I think the other part of excellence is the art, right? So how do you engage with your hiring managers? How do you understand the business? How do you communicate the brand to your candidates? Those two things combined are going to really, I think, offer something that is the highest quality and also the best human touch too.
The best system is the one where everybody wins.
Yes, yes, that's right.
Well, you have had some interesting roles across this space and others, so I feel like you may have something interesting here. I would love to hear, what is your recruiting hot take?
My recruiting hot take. I oftentimes think that recruiters don't recognize the value that they have to an organization. And, you know, I have been in the recruiting business now for 20 years. I think that it's really, really important that a recruiter recognizes the difference that they make to the business and to understand the value that they have in helping a company achieve its objectives. And as a recruiter, sometimes you are the first person that somebody is interacting with your brand. So you play an incredibly important role as a brand ambassador. B, you are the one organization in HR that has an external view. You are somebody who has more insights to bring back to the business, and you have the opportunity to learn what other companies are doing, best practices, you know, what's on Talent Mind. So like you're bringing something super unique to the table. And then I think also like the talent you're bringing in the organization is actually like making the business meet its objectives. So I would just say like my hot take to a recruiter is like, you have an incredibly important job. You bring a ton of value, and don't ever underestimate the difference that you're making for your company.
Exactly. And not only for the company, but also for candidates. One of the things I loved most about bringing people into a company is you're helping them with a life-altering, changing event, and you are their guide through that process if you're doing it right. And they're trusting you as the brand ambassador to bring them into a place where they're going to be successful, and that you're being transparent with them about what the role is, how the company operates. your experience at the company and both what recruiters bring value to the business and to candidates, I think that recruiters are life changers.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. In my role today, I still do some recruiting because
it's good to stay close to it.
It's good to stay close to it. But the other thing is, like, personally, it brings me a lot of satisfaction in exactly what you're talking about. Like, you are actually building relationships with your candidates and you get to learn from them. They get to take something away positive from you if you're giving a good experience. And that is an amazing thing. Like, the human aspect of what we do is so satisfying.
Keeps you going.
It is just like, yeah, you're changing lives.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100% agree. Well, I think we are coming up on our time. Where should people go to learn more about you and PepsiCo?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, you can go to your snack aisle and enjoy all of our products. So,
do you have a favorite?
Yes, I do. I have lots of favorites. I would say that baked white cheddar Cheetos are like amazing.
I love those too.
They're so
do our kids.
Tasty.
Yeah.
I know. Love. And also, like, I'm a huge bubbly fan. So I love the flavored seltzers, and I think bubbly is amazing, and it's so fun too. So those are two of my favorites, but I could like go on and on because I love our products. And we also have like products people don't even know about, like Sabra hummus is a PepsiCo product.
I did not know that.
SodaStream is a PepsiCo product.
I love my SodaStream.
Yes. So, like, I love that we have such a portfolio of choices. Where can people find out about me?
Yeah.
You can go on LinkedIn, of course. And I don't know, like, Google me, have your agent talk to my agent. We're talking so much about AI.
Yes. Hey, have my agentic AI talk to
have your agent talk to my agent.
Yes.
Yeah, one day.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I think this is going to be super valuable, especially to hear how a company is co-designing talent strategy at scale. So just really appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Shannon. It's super great to be here with everybody.
This episode was brought to you by Ashby. What an ATS should be. A scalable, all-in-one tool that combines powerful analytics with your ATS, scheduling, sourcing, and CRM. To never miss an episode, subscribe to our newsletter at www.ashbyhq.com/podcast. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.